Oh, hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar with Integrative Movement Institute. Do you work with clients that have frozen shoulder, meaning they can't really move their shoulder, secondary to frozen or adhesive capsulitis? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to share with you a common cause as to why so many clients are coming in these days with frozen shoulder. We're seeing more and more individuals with frozen shoulder, not quite sure. There isn't a lot of great information out there on frozen shoulder. One of the things that from the research that we understand about frozen shoulder is nobody really understands it very well. However, it does tend to be something associated with, or a condition associated with inflammation. There's inflammatory condition. It's very common with diabetics, very common with Parkinson's. It's very common with women over 40. They're almost 4 times more likely than men to have frozen shoulder. So there's likely a hormonal component to it as well. So what happens is with this inflammatory condition, we start to get fibrotic changes or collagenous changes in the joint capsule. The joint capsule surrounds the glenohumeral joint to provide stability. However, when it gets too stiff, hello Rahul, how are you, my friend? When the joint capsule becomes too stiff, well, then we lose the ability to dissociate or move the humerus independent of the glenoid fossa of the scapula. And now when the client goes to move their arm, the whole shoulder complex starts to move. So they're not able to get enough extensibility of that joint capsule. So what can we do as health and fitness professionals to help these individuals? Well, there's one thing you want to do is mobilize around the joint capsule. Again, you're going to work within your scope of practice. If you're a manual therapist, you will do manual therapy. You will manually work the joint capsule where it attaches around the acromion process. You'll work it as it blends with the ligaments of the shoulder. You'll work the rotator cuff muscles because they're often short and stiff because they're fascially blending into the joint capsule. If you don't have manual therapy skills, you will just use your myofascial release. You'll do the myofascial release skills or use your skills and release around the shoulder, particularly around the teres major, that posterior shoulder underneath where the individual is limited. You'll also need to do a bit of joint distraction or just gentle gliding of the humerus away from the glenoid fossa to give it a passive sort of traction. An easy way to do this, if you can't put your hands on your clients, is just have them hold a light dumbbell. And you've seen this exercise most likely on the internet or from rehab, and you'll do small pendulums. Just allow the weight to distract that arm down. You can even have the client hang over their bed and just kind of, with the weight, just kind of hang the shoulder down. The one important thing when you're doing pendulum and or tractioning is to make sure the whole shoulder complex isn't being pulled off the rib cage. So you want to help the client stabilize the scapula and then traction the humerus away from the scapula. So myofascial release, do some joint mobilization. If you're a manual therapist, do some traction with a weight and or manual traction if you have that skill set. Then you want to train a client to do some active range of motion. Again, you don't want to push them, like I've seen a lot of clients come back from physical therapy where they just keep pushing flexion, but they're not getting pure flexion at the glenohumeral joint. They're getting back extension, they're getting shoulder elevation, they're not getting pure range of motion. So work within the range of motion your client has. Isometric contractions can be very helpful as well to have your client actively isometrically contract against the wall. They can do abduction, they can start to do flexion, they can hold their arm on the wall and start to do some squatting or hinges to work on moving their scapula away from the fixed humerus. If your client can do some hanging, some gripping can also tend to help and move the shoulder, or should say move the scapula and the torso around that fixed humerus. So just different strategies. One of the things, my wife is working with somebody right now with frozen shoulder, adhesive capsulitis, and she actually has a stoma, so a colostomy. And she notices that when my wife actually manually helps her stabilize her abdominal wall and close the abdomen around the stoma or the bag, then she actually gains 10 to 20 degrees of range of motion. So there also likely is a component of the way your client is controlling pressure through their thoracolpelvic cylinder that's also related to frozen shoulder. So again, just some ideas and things to think about and some concepts to use, work within your scope of practice. Sometimes you will need the help of a physical therapist or chiropractor or other manual therapists that can do some joint mobilization on the joint capsule itself. Obviously, there's more extreme sort of approaches where they'll inject saline solution in to basically blow it up and stretch out the joint capsule. There's also surgical procedures where they'll go in and actually just cut the joint capsule to create more space. So again, learn about the condition that your client is dealing with, talk with their medical professionals, communicate with them so you understand what's going on, what you can and can't do, and then just use your skill set, use your knowledge to help improve what you know how to do. Myofascial release, some joint capsule mobilization, just simple, easy isometric positions to help regain some of that range of motion. And it just has to be a consistent effort. Your client has to do the work outside of your sessions to help build upon the work that you're doing with them during the session. And it just takes time. For some clients, it can resolve in a few months, but most clients, it can take up to 6 months or a year for it to fully resolve. So just be consistent with it. And again, learn everything you can from your client and from your client's medical team. And you can help so many clients. Hello, Holly Benson. I know you're dealing with some shoulder issues as well. You've been sort of documenting some of those issues. And frozen shoulder, one more thing about frozen shoulder. Thank you, Holly, for jumping on. You just reminded me, is frozen shoulder is very common after rest. When clients have had surgery and or trauma to the shoulder, frozen shoulder can also result after that. So again, similar sort of approach. Do the mobilization work, do your corrective exercises, work within your scope of practice, use the functional exercise progressions that your client can successfully do, and you can help your clients be, or I should say, progress in their journey and be a valuable part of their team. If you're looking for more about the shoulder, we just completed our 3-part series. When I say we, my fellow anatomy geek Jill and I just completed our 3-part series on the shoulder complex. So almost 6 hours, actually it was pretty close to 6 hours worth of content on the anatomy of the shoulder, so you really understand how the shoulder works, including the joint capsule, the labrum of the shoulder, and what your client has to do if they have a torn labrum, or if they've had surgery for a torn labrum. How do you help your client when they come back? How do you assess your client? We're going to help you use your anatomy knowledge so that you understand how to assess your client, what you're looking for, and how to observe for optimal alignment and control. And when your clients have wing scapula, motor control issues around the scapula, which is really what wing scapula is, a postural issue, but it's often a motor control issue as well when the client starts to move. So we'll teach you how to assess, and then more importantly, how to use the best corrective exercises to help your clients achieve more optimal alignment and control, and more importantly, work that into the functional exercise progression. So you know what exercises to use, how to progress your client, and which exercises can actually jack your client's shoulders up. Because simple exercises like the plank can actually create a lot of shoulder issues for your clients. So in the series, you've got 3 modules. You can watch at your own pace. You have access to it as long as we exist as a company, which we hope is going to be for a long time from now. And you have access to the handouts, all the handouts from the sessions. We created 2 cheat sheets on the anatomy of the shoulder, both the rotator cuff as well as all the global muscles of the shoulder, so you understand a real quick reference sheet. And then more importantly, we show you how to apply this information and how to communicate with your clients about this information and why some exercises are good and why some exercises aren't so great. Like, why isn't upright rows a good exercise for your clients with limited internal rotation? So the link is by this video, above, below, wherever you're watching this video. The link is there. We would love to see you. It's a great community of individuals who are just looking to up-level their knowledge and skill set and help more individuals with chronic shoulder issues. And we have a rock-solid guarantee. So if you watch this and you don't think it's great information, the best information, not even great information, the best information on the shoulder, just call us up and say, hey, you know what? It wasn't the best information I ever saw, so that's fine. No worries. We will give you your money back. We stand by this information, and I truly believe it's the same information that's going into my brand new book, and I wouldn't be putting it into this book unless it was the best information on the shoulder. So link is by this video. We'd love to see you inside this brand new series. And we are applying for CCs, so we should have them in the next few weeks. So you'll have that before the end of the year as well.